Unit 5 test, Part B, Audio 1.
Today, Rosemary and I are discussing a concept known as rewilding. So, Rosemary, how would you define rewilding?
That's a good question, William. As the name suggests, rewilding is basically making the environment wild again. Increasingly, experts are taking the view that we need to make our ecosystems more self-sustaining. It's all about nature managing itself rather than humans doing the job. It's been suggested that if 5% of Britain was rewilded, it would help reduce millions of tons of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and protect animal species currently threatened by global warming.
In a nutshell, it's turning the clock back to a time when nature was in charge. But do we really need to do that?
Well, if you look at what's happened to animal populations in the last 50 years, it's clear something has to be done. To give you an idea, 50% of Britain's native species are in decline, so there are fewer and fewer of them, while 15% are at risk of extinction. Another disturbing fact is that there are 40 million fewer birds than in the 1970s. That's a consequence of centuries of industrial development, with more and more land being used for agriculture and transport infrastructure.
So something needs to be done. What do rewilding projects look like?
They take all forms, but generally they involve looking to the past for solutions to environmental problems. For example, 1,000 years ago, much of Britain was covered in forests, which would have been home to a wide variety of plants and animals. So, in one project, conservationists have reintroduced a species called the bison, which once inhabited Britain's countryside. Similar to a large, long-haired cow, the bison's behaviour helps increase wildlife diversity in forested areas, allowing other plants and animals to thrive.
When you talk about conservationists, I imagine them taking part in small local projects like butterfly gardens, but this sounds much bigger.
Well, a project like this requires a lot of research and organisation, but rewilding organisations have emerged from the type of conservation project you've mentioned. Traditionally, conservationists wanted to conserve certain species because they were falling in number. The rewilding movement is really building on the knowledge acquired by those conservationists over many decades. The main difference is that the rewilding movement takes a broader view of the environment, with lots of ecosystems interacting.
And how might the countryside look in the future as a result of rewilding?
If you took a piece of typical British countryside today, you'd expect to find carefully managed fields, mostly turned over to some form of agriculture. Many of them have had their trees cut down to make space for the country's more than 32 million sheep. Deforestation has led to fewer plant species in general, while chemicals and medicines used to manage the sheep end up contaminating streams and rivers. However, if we removed the sheep, native plants and trees would do well. In the future, we might expect that piece of land to be full of insects, wild flowers, and perhaps large animals, like the bison.
So, rewilding sounds good for the countryside. But are there any advantages for society in general?
Well, for nearly 200,000 years, humans had an equal relationship with nature. It's only in the last 10,000 years that humans have managed nature for their own benefit. Nowadays, the vast majority of the Earth's inhabitants live in urban areas, spending most of their time indoors. This has negative effects on mental and physical health and leads to social problems like crime. By putting nature back in control, people will develop a new, healthier relationship with it, and society as a whole will benefit.